Believe it or not, scientists can now keep parts of a human organ alive on a tiny chip. Imagine holding this tiny piece of technology in your hand. Looks like nothing special, no bigger than a computer chip. But inside this humble block of clear plastic, living human tissue is expanding, stretching, and breathing. To understand how this impossible technology came to be, you have to step back to the moment Dr. Donald Ingber stood in the fluorescent chill of his laboratory, staring at a stack of failed trial reports. Millions of dollars spent, years of tireless research gone, all for drugs that had cured diseases in lab mice, only to prove useless or outright toxic when given to human beings. He was staring directly at the dark, open secret of modern medicine. 90% of all drugs that succeed in animal testing fail completely in humans. For decades, laboratories around the world had operated as glorified cemeteries for promising medicine, while human patients waited and died for treatments that never arrived. The core problem was fundamental. Animals are not human beings. Their biological systems, cell structures, and immune responses are fundamentally different from ours. Yet for over a century, the medical world remained locked in this flawed approach, simply because no one had built a viable alternative. Flat plastic petri dishes weren't the answer either. When human cells are cultured on a flat surface, they flatten out, lose their natural shape, and stop behaving like living tissue. Ingber realized that living organs don't just exist in a chemical soup. They live in a physical world. They expand, contract, bend, and feel fluid flow. Looking at a tiny silicone computer chip on his desk, an unheard-of idea began to form. Computer engineers used microfabrication to etch microscopic channels for electricity. What if he used those same techniques to create microchannels for living human cells and fluids? What if he built a living microenvironment that didn't just hold cells, but allowed them to experience physical movement? When he pitched the concept of building biological organs using microchip manufacturing techniques, the traditional scientific establishment met him with deep skepticism. To mainstream biologists, combining rigid chip manufacturing with living human tissue sounded like science fiction. Ingber pushed back against the doubt, standing firmly on his core biological insight.
Nature builds from the bottom up by self-assembly, but it's the mechanical context that tells cells who they are and what to do.
Working quietly with his team at Harvard's Wyss Institute, he pressed forward. They etched channels thinner than a human hair into a clear, flexible polymer chip. On one side of a porous membrane, they seeded living human lung cells. On the other side, they lined the channel with human blood vessel cells. To mimic the act of breathing, they attached tiny side chambers connected to a vacuum pump. When the vacuum applied suction, it pulled the sides of the flexible polymer, stretching the human tissue. When the vacuum released, the tissue relaxed. Under the high-powered microscope, as fluid flowed through the microchannels and the vacuum pump began its cycle, the living human tissue began to stretch and flex in a steady, living rhythm. Against all traditional scientific assumptions, a tiny piece of clear plastic had just taken its very first breath.